Hi, welcome to another edition of Facebook Live, brought to you from Michigan Associates of Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine. I'm Kat Barber, and I'm joined here today with my husband, Kevin.
Hello.
Who's going to help prompt me and keep the video fluid and flowing and let me know if there are any questions. And we're doing a little mini cooking show today. So I wore my cooking frock, as I like to when I prepare food. And today, the dish that we're going to be working on is turmeric, garlic, ginger noodle soup. So this soup is a wonderful restorative balance of both yin and yang and warming, pungent flavors. The combination of all of these really helps to boost and strengthen the immune system and really helps with lung support. It's really quick and easy. I'm going to go through a couple of different substitutions as well, talk to you about the ingredients, and then we'll focus on a couple of different food as medicine or traditional Chinese medicine theory with yin and yang balance of foods, as well as the thermal nature or property, and then I'll discuss the 5 flavors. So the first area that I want to talk to you about is yin and yang, and you can't not discuss yin and yang when it comes to food, because yin and yang is part of everything in nature. It's all around us. It's part of the seasons. It's outdoors, it's indoors. It's part of human beings and as well as plant and animals or food. So if you can think of yin and yang as a pair of opposites that are limitless. They're interchangeable, and yin transforms into yang and yang can transform into yin. So some examples in nature and around us. Yang is active, while yin is passive. You think about yang being hot, yin is cold. Yang would be outside, yin inside. Yang properties is expansion, active, moving, where yin is contracting, inward and focused. And a really great example of this in nature is that heat produces cold and cold produces heat. And how do we see this? In the seasons, you would think about winter transitioning into spring, as well as summer transitioning into fall. And then also with health. So, for example, if you catch a cold, what happens? Not always, but a lot of times you have a slight fever or a fever with that. So that would be cold transforming into heat. And then if you're overheated, for example, you get a sunburn or you are spending too much time in the sun, you might get the chills. So that would be heat transforming into cold. So these are the balance of yin and yang. So
how does yin and yang apply to food?
Well, I kind of explained that, but I'll get more into that. But the next prompt that I'd love to have you ask me
is the thermal nature of food.
There we go, the thermal nature of food. So the thermal nature being temperature, hot or cold, warm or cool. And this is part of every plant and animal, as well as human beings. Once again, this is also reflected in nature all around us. So the thermal nature of food also depends on how the particular plant is grown or how the animal is raised. The type of meal prep that we're using and employing to create the intention of using specific thermal intention with hot and cold, warm and cool, as well as where the plant or animal is raised and how it's harvested. So those are some things just to think about. Some physiology, according to the thermal nature of food, would be cool foods direct energy down and inward. They move blood flow down, inward into the internal organs, into the lower part of the body, whereas hot or warm foods tend to act as moving, dispersing up and outward. It raises body temperature. It moves blood up and outward and directs that energy towards the surface of the body. So, a little bit in accordance with yin and yang and thermal property. What are you going to ask me next, Kevin?
I'm very interested in the 5 flavors.
Oh, the 5 flavors. So there are 5 flavors in Chinese medicine that correspond with a season and correspond with a specific temperature and action, as well as specific organ systems. So the 5 flavors in Chinese medicine We've got bitter, sour, sweet, pungent, which would be kind of spicy, as well as salty. And all of these enter a very specific internal organ. So for example, pungent, which is yang. You think about pungent, yang energy moves up and it increases blood flow, it disperses out. So it has a very yang function, and it's very warming and expansive. Now the pungent flavor, an example of that would be like warm spices, cardamom, clove, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, and scallion. And these particular foods and spices have an affinity for the lungs and the kidneys, and they really help balance digestion. So next I'm going to talk about sweet, which is yang, which to me I always thought sweet sounds more like yin, but it has a very yang property, which harmonizes and relaxes, and it's good in all seasons, but it has a specific affinity for the spleen and stomach organs, so it's wonderful for digestion. Salty, which is a yin cooling type flavor, that is very centering. It helps to move energy down. So anything that's yin and cooling moves down. Anything that's yang and warm rises or moves up. And salty can help moisten dryness. It helps soften nodules, as well as it helps to break up phlegm. It's wonderful for digestion, and it helps to detox the body, as well as supports the kidneys. Next is sour, which is also yin and cooling, and this is more of an acidic flavor. So if you think about sour, you would think about, vinegar, obviously, pickles, plum, sour plum, and even apples, which can have both a sour and a sweet flavor component to them. So sour is very astringent, meaning that it prevents fluid from escaping. It helps to preserve fluids in the body, and it has a wonderful affinity for the liver organ system. In addition to the liver, it can help with irritable bowel syndrome, excess sweating, and it really helps to consolidate the digestion. Last but not least, we have bitter, which is a yin and cooling flavor, and that helps to drain heat. It descends heat in the body. So anywhere where heat is trapped, bitter foods are wonderful. They can also help to address damp conditions, such as mucus. The bitter property helps to break up mucus and phlegm in the body. And it has a very specific affinity for the heart, as well as the liver, and that can help to reduce blood pressure. So keeping all of this in balance with the yin and yang of foods, the thermal nature of food, as well as their specific flavor, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some ingredients and components for the turmeric, ginger, and garlic soup. So, got my little mise en place, everything in its place together. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is turmeric. This gorgeous, gorgeous, bright orange yellow color comes from curcumin, and this is an Indian spice. Turmeric is warm and bitter, so it has an affinity for the lungs as well as the heart, and it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. It has antioxidant properties. It's a great liver protectant, and it lowers cholesterol and reduces inflammation throughout the body, such as joint swelling and even pain. So you think about people take turmeric or curcumin at this point, and this really helps to move blood flow throughout the body, and it also increases energy and metabolism. So warming and bitter. Second ingredient I want to talk about is ginger. So this is fresh ginger root. This is my preference. I don't like using dried ginger. It just has much more potency and medicine. Food is medicine in something that's fresh. So ginger is also warming, but it's pungent. So pungent has this lifting, dispersing effect, and this has an expansive quality. It helps with nausea and vomiting. It helps to calm an unsettled stomach. It's also great for the lungs with breaking up phlegm and mucus, a phlegmy cough, upper respiratory infection, and it also has a wonderful calming effect with muscle spasms and aches and pains. So you think about lungs, upper respiratory, as well as digestion. Ginger also, because of its warming property, has a diaphoretic quality, which means it promotes sweating. So it's really great if you have a cold or flu as well. I also like to show you a little bit of ginger that I just as like a bypass to chopping up raw ginger right in the moment. I like to take a big hunk of ginger, peel it, and then pulse it in the food processor and throw it in an ice cube tray and then freeze it. And then you can just pop them out individually and you can add that to your recipe. The next ingredient I want to talk to you about is garlic. And garlic, right here, these beauties here, is also pungent and dispersing. So it also has this warming quality, which means it has an affinity for the lungs. Garlic is amazing. It's an antiviral, antibacterial, anti-parasitic. This excels at treating colds and flu, as well as breaking up phlegm and mucus. And it really helps calm the stomach. It's great for digestion, like for overeating. And it also helps support lung function and treats asthma, as well as bacterial and yeast overgrowth, like candida. So a couple of the other items in the soup, and I'm going to be posting this recipe after the Facebook Live with preparation and ingredients and all the information on the yin and yang thermal properties, as well as 5 flavors. But it's important to have lime citrus to add to this, because lime has a counter effect, I guess you could say a countering, balancing, cooling effect with all these warm ingredients, because it's all about balancing the yin and yang of food. In addition, got a little bit of coriander seed that can be ground, and then I have cumin here. These also have warming properties and are very synergistic with the combination of turmeric, garlic, and ginger. The recipe calls for shallots in the onion family, but if you don't have shallots, you can substitute it for a yellow onion or whatever onion you have. Adding more spice. The recipe did call for serrano peppers. I didn't have it, so I substituted jalapenos, which gives it a nice kick and zip. A little bit of vegetable stock. Coconut milk, which has a cooling effect, and then coconut oil. So a couple of other ingredients that the recipe calls for is noodles. We just happen to have udon noodles on hand, and this is made from wheat. But if you're gluten-free, or if you don't have udon noodles, because a lot of people don't, you can substitute egg noodles. You could use a buckwheat noodle or some type of gluten-free noodle. And then the recipe also calls for Swiss chard. I didn't have Swiss chard, but I had mustard greens. Swiss chard and mustard greens are in the bitter pungent family, all about warm and dispersing, so this is a good substitute. If you don't have Swiss chard, you could use spinach or dandelion green, some other type of pungent green to balance out the dish. So I actually didn't use noodles when I prepared the soup, which is simmering on the stove. I used tofu because I had a big block of tofu in the refrigerator that I needed to use up. So tofu adds a little bit of salt, as well as it has a warming effect. So synergistically, the combination of turmeric, ginger, garlic, lime, coconut milk, as well as a little bit of pepper and the other warming spices, melds into this wonderful, restorative, nourishing, immune-supporting soup. So let's have some soup. So I'm going to have my husband, hopefully his hand won't go over. We're going to dish out some soup here. So this is what the soup will look like. See that beautiful yellow color from the turmeric. And you can make this ahead of time. It's really nourishing and it tastes wonderful, really easy. You could substitute an animal protein if you wanted to, but that does change the flavor components. But if you wanted to add something like chicken. Okay, Kevin, are you ready for some soup?
I'm hungry.
Are you hungry?
Okay. I am.
Okay, so dishing up the soup here.
And this is one of my favorite soups.
I know it is. Okay, so it's time for some soup. Yeah, if you want to put that back there, thank you so much. And come on over here, Kevin. right in front of the camera this way. So this is what the beautiful turmeric, ginger, garlic, lime noodle soup looks like. This can be easily made ahead of time. You can freeze it, and it's a crowd pleaser. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was really fun to do this at home with my husband. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, and I just want to see if there's any questions right now from any of the viewers. If you do have any questions, please hit us up at Acupuncture in Michigan on Facebook or acupuncturemichigan.org, and I will be posting this recipe in just a few minutes. So be well, stay safe, and stay at home. And so looking forward to seeing you at Michigan Associates of Acupuncture in the near future.